The following presentation reports on the research findings and conclusions obtained from my action research project. I will discuss various aspects of the project as well as analyse the data collected according to the MEE framework and how this addresses my research question. How can I differentiate my teaching and learning activities to meet the needs of all students and ultimately encourage student engagement? I hold a true copy of this assignment in the event it is lost or damaged, and I confirm that I have submitted the script of this assignment to plagiarism detecting software. The context of the action research. The school I was assigned to was Elderslie Public School, located in Camden, a small suburb approximately 62 kilometres southwest of Sydney. The school holds 484 students and 22 teaching staff. Only 3% of the students had Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander origins, and 18% spoke a language other than English. Therefore, Elderslie was not a particularly culturally or linguistically diverse school. I was assigned to an early Stage 1 kindergarten class, KG, made up of 22 unique students with 2 EALD students and 1 ESL student. There were 3 lower level learning support students and 1 advanced student in the class. The kindergarten students were enthusiastic about learning and greatly enjoyed the use of interactive ICT activities, as well as an element of fun. My mentor teacher focused a lot of their learning on whole class modelling, rotations and small group work where students could communicate their thoughts and ideas in a collaborative way. The focus of the action research. The focus of this action research is based on the diverse learning needs of the students within the class, as well as the area of my teaching pedagogy that I feel required the most attention, this being effective and consistent differentiation. Mills et al. State differentiation is essential for creating an inclusive learning environment for all students to participate in. As there was a large difference in learning ability across the students in KG, it was clear to me that effective differentiation would be extremely significant for this class to maintain engagement within the classroom. Originally, my plan was very individualised, with the focus being on individual students. However, as my practicum continued, I observed the collaborative environment of the class, therefore leading me to shift my focus to group differentiation, high, middle, and low level ability. This aligns with my teaching pedagogy, as my goal is to implement Vygotsky's social theory of learning to allow students to work together to achieve a common goal. The MEE framework fits in well to my adapted research action plan, as my aim is to produce high cognitive, high affective, and high operative learning experiences, the small e of the framework. These experiences will therefore affect and influence the students' participation, motivation, and engagement within the lesson, as well as their relationship with other students in the class and their overall engagement with school itself, the large E of the framework. The collection and use of student data in professional self-reflection. Through conversations with the school principal, I was able to identify that the school's ethics policy did not require the collection of signed consent forms from the parents of the students within the class. However, permission from the principal was required to allow for the collection and analysis of student data. This is provided in Appendix 1. I collected 4 different types of evidence during the research project, the first being student work samples. These were collected by marking student work samples and taking pictures of this work. I collected evidence of worksheets activities, work completed and produced in student workbooks, and pictures of completed ICT iPad activities. These pieces of evidence were collected throughout the duration of my practicum and organised and analysed after each day. I used this data to observe the engagement of the students within the lesson. Were they completing the work? Identifying their understanding. Were the answers correct? as well as the effectiveness of the designed lesson or activity. Observations were taken every day for every lesson and recorded on feedback forms by my mentor teacher, as well as my own reflections. I collected these and stored these in my practicum folder to enable me to refer back to them. Within the observations, I would provide evidence of the elements of changes and improvements to my teaching pedagogy and learning activities, the engagement of the students, and the behavioural management strategies I implemented throughout the lesson. Interactions and learning conversations between students and myself were recorded throughout the day during group activities. Whole class discussions and literacy and numeracy rotations. I recorded these on my laptop in a Word document, and these were used to analyse student understandings of concepts, analyse the way I teach certain concepts, and the engagement of the students within the lessons. Are they having meaningful conversations about the topic? Student self-assessments were collected through having students colouring the face that represented their thoughts or feelings towards the lesson they had just completed. I collected this after multiple lessons throughout my practicum. I ensured this was anonymous so that I could obtain a general idea of how the students were responding to the learning activities presented, and to remove the pressure of the need to please the teacher. This allowed me to analyse the engagement of my students within specific lessons, to understand their attitudes towards certain KLAs, and to improve on my teaching practices and differentiation of learning activities. The key findings of my study provide evidence of the way my teaching pedagogy moved from whole class modelling activities to group focused lessons differentiated according to ability. Throughout the duration of the study, there was a constant need to overcome behavioural challenges from certain students, as this disrupted the focus and engagement of the entire class. In order to overcome this, I focused a large portion of my teaching strategies on behavioural management, mainly a raffle ticket token system, and ensured I was creating and presenting engaging lessons to allow students to remain focused and motivated. I focused my data collection around 3 key differentiated lessons to observe the changes to student motivation, engagement, and achievement within these lessons. The first lesson was a mathematics lesson focused on identifying and building friends of 5 or 10, depending on the student's ability level. In this way, this lesson was differentiated to meet the needs of all students, as their task was specific to their learning goal. This is evident in work sample 1 and 2, where students were asked to build either friends of 5 or friends of 10, using counters, and then utilising ICT through recording photo evidence of their work and writing the appropriate number sentence. This activity is allowing students to demonstrate high cognitive behaviours through developing their understanding of the relationship between numbers. This can also be seen through Learning Conversation 1, where the students are working collaboratively to identify all friends of 5. Student 1 and 2 are displaying high operative behaviours through correcting mistakes and encouraging each other to review their solutions. High levels of student engagement can be seen within Observation 1, within the feedback given by my mentor teacher. All students were working towards their goal and responding well to the feedback that was given to them. Observation 2, my personal reflection, similarly shows how all students were engaging with their differentiated activity over the duration of the lesson. Student Self-Assessment 1 provides further evidence of student attitudes towards the concepts they were learning about and the activities they were participating in. The overall response was a smiling face, therefore a positive experience. This first lesson highlights high levels of engagement as students were able to meet learning goals and produce appropriate work samples that display their knowledge of important mathematical concepts. The second lesson was another mathematics lesson, but this time focused on subtraction. Students were given 4 differentiated activities that they completed through rotations. One of the activities can be seen in work sample 3, which shows the emergent learner subtraction sheet with the working at learner worksheet above. This highlights how this activity was differentiated to meet the ability levels of both students. Students were asked to complete each number sentence and record their answers on the worksheet provided. However, it is evident from this work sample that this learner was initially adding instead of subtracting their numbers. This emphasises a lower level of engagement as the student was unsure about the purpose of the assigned activity. This is also evident in Learning Conversation 2, where 3 students have very different ideas about the learning goal of the activity. The students were using distractions to avoid completing the task in front of them. This lower level of engagement may be due to poor understanding of the concepts due to my teaching strategies, a lack of focus during whole class explanation, or low motivation from lack of enjoyment. Therefore, a low affective, low cognitive, low operative, small e learning experience. The low engagement level is evident in observation 3 and 4, where my mentor teacher had suggested to shorten the time allocated for each activity, as some students were off task, therefore creating a low affective learning experience. Similarly, my personal reflection provides evidence of the lack of understanding of some students, therefore directing my focus to revising the concepts of addition and subtraction before proceeding with activities. This indicates that my teaching strategies and learning experiences may not be working for certain students, and therefore improvements, alterations, and changes need to be undertaken in order to increase the engagement of my students. Student self-assessment 2 shows the students were neither excited nor unhappy with the learning experience. Although this does not indicate a negative experience, it does emphasize how certain students were not completely engaged within the specific lesson. The third lesson was an English writing lesson based on the characteristics of spring. Students were asked to write one sentence or more using their 6-star writing checklist and include describing words and conjunctions. Learning Conversation 3 provides evidence of the high level of engagement students displayed during the whole class modelling stage of the lesson and their ability to recall their individual goals based on their ability level. This emphasises a high cognitive learning experience as students are thinking hard to identify their differentiated learning intentions. This indicates that students are able to take control of their own learning, specifically with writing, and work towards their expected goal. This high cognitive experience is also identified through Work Sample 4, an example of the learning intention and goals displayed on the whiteboard throughout the lesson. Students are able to constantly refer to this throughout the lesson, once again keeping them focused. Work Sample 5 shows a student's piece of writing produced during this lesson. They were able to compose multiple recognizable sentences, including the use of conjunctions, describing words, and their 6-star writing, therefore demonstrating high operative engagement. This was a turning point for this student, as this shows their improvement from the last writing lesson, where they had previously produced only one simple sentence. The high cognitive, high operative learning experience is again evident within Observation 5 and 6. Feedback from my mentor teacher identifying positive aspects of the differentiated lesson and the high engagement, motivation, and participation of the students. Student Self-Assessment 3 further supports the strong engagement of students within the lesson through identifying positive student attitudes and enjoyment with the learning activities they were participating in. The overall response was a smiling face. The short and long-term implications. My action research project has emphasised the importance of providing students with the opportunity to learn in an environment they feel comfortable. Various barriers need to be overcome in order to effectively differentiate. These include lack of time, a focus on behaviour management, fear of seeking help, a lack of materials and space, and lack of knowledge about the individual characteristics and learning styles of students. Professional development in the area of effective differentiation involving continual assessment and reflection on teaching pedagogy, classroom practice, learning activities, and student engagement and feedback is essential. Educators need to focus on the content, product, and environment of which their students thrive. Students should be allowed to grow, develop, change, learn, and be challenged at their own pace. The overall goal is to improve the small e engagement, to increase student motivation and participation in learning experiences within the classroom, which will therefore improve their large E engagement through encouraging positive thoughts and experiences associated with school itself. I feel my action research project has provided the foundations for this level of engagement through differentiation. However, this is an ongoing process that is essential for all students throughout their school experience to ensure they are participating in the highest quality learning experiences specific to their individual needs. This slide shows the list of references cited throughout my action research project. Appendix 1 contains evidence on my participation in my action research focus group through WhatsApp conversations, peer feedback, and reflective questions. Appendix 2 contains the consent forms from my mentor teacher and the principal of Elderslie Public School.